The following account was taken from real testimonies. Names and details have been altered for privacy. My trip through northern Spain had been going smoothly until that day. I had just checked out of a small hostel in a town called Estella and started walking toward the bus station with my backpack and a little too much confidence. The sun had barely risen, but the humidity was already thick. I remember thinking, this is the kind of morning when something unexpected happens. I was supposed to take a morning bus to Pamplona, then another ride east. I had planned everything: routes, stops, even how much water I would need. But when I reached the station, I saw a handwritten note taped to the wall. Today's buses are cancelled due to a local strike. No explanation, no replacement route, no announcement online. I stood there with my backpack hanging off one shoulder, watching other travelers slowly realize the same thing. Some swore quietly, some waited stubbornly, some already had backup plans, but I had none. I didn't know the language well enough to ask for help, and the nearest train station was 40 kilometers away. For a moment, I felt that familiar travel anxiety. The kind you don't show in photos, the kind you don't write in captions. So I sat on a bench near the station entrance and tried to seem calm, like I was doing something on purpose. Like I had time to waste. That's when he sat down next to me. He looked normal, maybe 50, maybe older. A calm face, clean boots, a wool cap even though the weather was warm. He carried no bag except for a folded newspaper and a single key hanging from a string around his neck. He didn't look like a traveler. He didn't look like a local either. He spoke first, not in Spanish, but in perfect English. Waiting for a bus that won't come. The way he said it almost made me laugh. It felt like he had been waiting for me to realize it. I nodded. He smiled gently and said, "I can give you a ride if you need one." A ride? That was exactly what I needed. But something in his tone felt too easy. "Still," I asked, "to Pamplona?" He nodded. "Further, if you want." We stood up and walked out of the station together. And I remember thinking, sometimes kindness arrives so quickly that your instincts don't have time to catch up. We reached the parking area. Empty, every spot. I looked around, confused. He stopped, turned toward me, and said it naturally, almost casually. "I don't have a car, not anymore, but I can still take you." I froze, not out of fear, at least not yet. It was disbelief, like my brain needed a few seconds to translate his words into danger. No car. No explanation, just a confident smile. He looked at me as if I was the one who didn't understand how travel works. Then he added, quietly, "There are other ways to travel. You just have to be open to them." And suddenly the empty parking lot felt much larger than it should. I didn't move, not because I trusted him, but because I didn't know what to do next. He noticed the hesitation on my face and calmly walked toward the edge of the parking lot, as if expecting me to follow. He didn't pressure me. He didn't insist. He just stopped a few meters away and waited. There was something unsettling in how patient he was. Finally, he turned back to me and said, "You don't need a vehicle to go somewhere. You just need someone who knows the way." That sentence stuck in my head longer than I want to admit. I looked around. No buses, no taxis, no trains, no travelers left, only that empty lot, and him. And honestly, part of me just didn't want to feel alone anymore, so I followed him. We left the parking area and walked along a small country road leading out of Estella. The sun climbed higher. Heat shimmered on the asphalt. I kept waiting for him to explain what he meant earlier, that he could take me without a car. But he walked with steady confidence, like someone who had done this before. At one point I asked, "How far is your home?" He shook his head. "I don't live here." I tried another question. "Where are you going then?" He looked at me and smiled. "I go where people need to go. That keeps me moving." I wanted to laugh, but the way he spoke made it feel less like philosophy and more like a job. We walked for maybe half an hour before a delivery van approached from the east. He lifted one hand, no rush, no panic, like he expected the van to stop. And it did stop, immediately. The driver rolled down the window and simply asked, "Just you today?" The man beside me nodded, then turned to me. "Get in." We got in the back of the van. No seats, no other passengers, just boxes. The driver never asked who I was. Never even looked at me. He just started driving. That silence felt heavy, like I had entered a space that didn't belong to me. After 10 minutes, I asked the driver, "Are you going to Pamplona?" He didn't reply. No glance. Nothing. Instead, the man beside me answered. Even though I hadn't asked him, he goes where I tell him to go. That was the moment I finally felt it. This was not luck. This was not help. This was something planned. Not by me. But definitely by someone. Still. I didn't ask to get out. Why? Because he hadn't harmed me. He hadn't threatened me. He hadn't even touched me. That was the strangest part. He wasn't dangerous. He just didn't belong to normal life. As we drove deeper into the countryside, he finally started talking. Softly, like a storyteller around a campfire. He said that he used to travel with his brother. They would take road trips across countries, no hotel bookings, no return dates. They trusted the road. The road always gave something back, he said. Then he paused. But one day, we took different rides. I waited for the next sentence. He never said it. Instead, his voice changed, just slightly. Since then, I try not to let people travel alone. It felt like he wasn't helping strangers. He was replacing someone, and I wondered, when he looked at me, did he actually see his brother? We drove through small villages, fields stretching on both sides like time had stopped moving. I began to feel the strange rhythm of the road, the sound of gravel hitting the bottom of the van, the brief shadows of trees passing over us like silent waves. And then, he finally looked at me. Not curious, not suspicious. Almost evaluating. Do you trust me? The question arrived like a sudden turn. I didn't answer. I looked at the road. I looked at the driver. I looked anywhere but at him. Because the truth was, I didn't know. It wasn't fear that held me. It was something softer, almost like the comfort of not being alone. But silence is a dangerous answer, because silence can mean yes. He leaned his head slightly, still studying me, and said, "It's okay if you don't. Most people only trust me at the end of the trip." Those words stayed in my mind longer than they should have. Sometime near midday, the van slowed down and stopped in front of a stone well on a dirt road. No signs, no buildings, nothing but an open field and an old bench. The man tapped twice on the metal wall of the van, like he knew exactly how to signal the driver. The van moved away before I could even say thank you. We were alone. He sat on the bench. I sat beside him. He asked, "Are you hungry?" I shrugged, so he handed me a sandwich wrapped in paper, like he had expected the answer. Something about that made me wonder just how many times he had done this. We ate in silence for a while. Then he looked at me gently and said, "You're worried about where this ends. But you should first ask where you truly want it to end." That sentence felt too close, almost like he could see the thoughts I didn't say out loud. I finally asked the question I had been avoiding. "Who are you?" He didn't give a name. Instead, he gave a story. He said he used to work near the border, guiding travelers and helping them find routes, ones that weren't always on maps. Some people were lost, some were running. Some were searching. He never cared which. But there was one thing he cared about. No one disappears if someone walks beside them. That's what he said, but his eyes looked like someone he once walked beside had disappeared. Then he added, almost softly, "A ride is not just a vehicle. It's a decision." And at that moment, I understood something important. I wasn't following him because I trusted him. I was following him because I didn't want to decide alone. That's a different kind of weakness. The kind that doesn't show fear. It hides it behind a companion. He stood up again. No hurry, no warning. "If you still want to go to Pamplona, we can walk the rest of the way. Walk, the rest of the way. To a city 40 kilometers away." And he said it like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Then he began walking, slowly, expecting me to follow. And the thing is, I almost did, not because I trusted him, but because some part of me was afraid of what it would mean. To let him walk away, sometimes the hardest part, isn't saying yes, it's letting go of the person who offered you yes. He walked ahead slowly, not turning back, not insisting. That was the part that made it harder. If he had forced me to follow, I would have known what to do. But sometimes, the most dangerous roads are the ones that offer you freedom. I stood still. Dry wind moved across the field. A single tree stood in the distance like a question with no answer. And suddenly, I felt something I hadn't felt since the morning. Silence inside me, not relief, not fear, silence, the kind that shows up when your heart knows exactly what to do. But your mind still wants to debate it. He didn't turn to check if I was following. He just kept walking, and I finally understood something. People who truly help you don't wait for thanks, they wait to see if you can walk without them. I called after him, I don't know where I'm going. He didn't stop. His voice came back, calm and clear. That's fine. Just make sure you're the one choosing the direction. Then he raised a hand, not a wave, but a signal. As if he was finishing a task, as if he was letting me go. And for the first time that day, I turned around, not toward Pamplona, not toward Estella, but back to the small bus station. That no longer had buses, but still felt like my decision. I walked, not quickly, but with a rhythm that was finally my own. The van was gone, the lot was empty, yet somehow I didn't feel stranded anymore, because now I was walking alone, by choice. Sometimes I still think about him, not as a stranger, more like a moment. The kind you spend years trying to explain, but never truly can. I don't know his name. I don't know his story. But I know what he gave me, not a ride, a decision. And that is something you don't find on a map. I walked back to the town, not toward any destination, just forward. There was no pressure now, no voice guiding me, only my footsteps. At first, I thought I'd feel foolish. Like I had followed a stranger for no reason, but instead, I felt strangely calm. I realized something simple. I hadn't actually followed him. I had followed the part of myself that didn't want to be alone. And maybe that's why we meet certain people on the road, not to rescue us, not to change us, but to remind us that we are capable of walking alone. When the moment arrives, even now, when I travel, I sometimes feel like someone is walking beside me, not physically, but like a presence that asks one question silently: is this still your path? If the answer is yes, I keep going. If the answer is no, I turn back before it becomes too late. That's what I learned from the man with no car. Routes don't save you, maps don't save you, people don't save you, your decisions do. Back in town, the air felt thick, not with heat, but with awareness. Everyday sounds felt louder than they should have. A dog barking 2 streets away, dishes clattering behind cafe walls, someone unlocking a bike chain, footsteps on the pavement. Normal life had returned, but I hadn't fully returned to it. I sat on the same bench outside the bus station where I first met him. That morning felt like a week ago, maybe a lifetime. A few buses had resumed service. Travelers were moving again. Some seemed stressed, some looked excited. But everyone moved with one clear thing: purpose. And that made me wonder, had I been traveling with purpose all this time? Or was I just moving, hoping something would give me one? That was when I finally understood the difference between traveling and escaping. I stayed in Estella for one more day, not because I had to, but because I needed to. I explored the town slowly, as if walking through my own thoughts. I visited a small church, a market square, an alley that looked like it led nowhere but still felt inviting. And the more I walked, the more I felt like the world wasn't actually asking me to arrive anywhere. It was asking me to pay attention. I realized something. Most travelers search for places, but some journeys are not about arriving. They're about learning how to walk again. And maybe that was his purpose. Not to guide people to a destination, but to guide them back to themselves. Because when I left town again, this time by bus, I didn't feel rescued. I felt ready. Days passed, then weeks. I traveled through 3 more cities, each one easier than the last. I started waking up earlier, breathing slower, choosing routes more carefully, not because I was afraid to get lost, but because I was finally walking with intention. Every choice felt lighter, every moment felt present, and every silence no longer felt empty. But sometimes, during a quiet evening or a long bus ride, I would think of him, not with fear, almost with respect. He never told me his name. He never gave me advice. He never claimed to know what was best for me. He just arrived, like a question I didn't know I needed to answer. And when I was ready, he left, like an answer I had to understand on my own. I often wonder where he is now, not because I want to meet him again, But because I know I won't, people like him don't stay in one place. They walk through stories, not cities. You don't encounter them twice, you meet them once. And then spend years figuring out why. I've learned something since then. You don't need to stay with people to remember them. Sometimes all they give you is a question, and sometimes that question is enough to change how you walk forever.